We've all seen it. The detrimental effects of climate change will harm every being on this planet. Sweeping one thing under the rug is simple, but there is no way to deny warming oceans, shrinking ice sheets, glacial retreat, decreasing snow cover, sea level rising, ocean acidification, and countless other forms of evidence that blatantly scream our planet is dying. These things are actively occurring as I speak. You would think the world would listen to the climate scientists, yet here I am, a 16-year-old girl in high school, trying to find the hope for a future that I may never see. I value my education. I am so grateful for it. And if I felt like this change could be made in a basic and systematic way, I would be in physics class taking my test right now. It's not like I want to be fearing for the future of the entire planet instead of preparing for my own. It's not like I asked to be up here begging for someone to help us to do something. But growing up, I was taught to fight for change. It seems in the case of a global emergency, questioning those who label the emergency as a hoax is completely valid. The majority of economic powerhouses and influencers running the world have shown little intention of helping our generation. It's up to all of us to stand up for our future, for this beautiful planet we get to call home.
And his perspective is very valuable in this conversation. Thank you.
All right, Scott. I've only ever seen one grasshopper sparrow on Nantucket. A century ago, they were among the most abundant songbirds on the island. Their buzzy, insect-like trills erupted from seemingly everywhere throughout the rolling heathlands. With a population density estimated to be about 3 to 4 pairs per 100 square yards, places like My Oaks Pond and the Eastern Moors provided fruitful and prosperous breeding grounds for this inconspicuous and reserved denizen of sandplain grassland. But this was Nantucket then, and this is Nantucket now. When Edith Bolger Andrews remarked in her 1948 masterpiece, The Birds of Nantucket, that, quote, the grasshopper sparrow has reversed its status on the island and that the same trend has been taking place on Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, end quote, she would have found it hard to believe that in a few short decades they would be almost completely and utterly extirpated from southeastern Massachusetts. And yet here we are. Since that time, not so long ago, scrub oak has steadily crept across the heathlands unregulated and nibbled away at her bounty. Her introduced heather, her blue-eyed grass, the fields of goldenrod, toadflax, aster, cauliflower, and milkwort. Pitch pine has expanded only to fragment, to shatter, and ultimately collapse an already crumbling infrastructure, a key component for the grasshopper sparrow's plight. In the 1940s and 1950s, it was made evident that we had only ourselves to blame for the downward spiral of biodiversity that would soon follow. Dr. James D. Lazzle warns us of this inevitable fact through his incredible foresight in the 1964 hit classic This Broken Archipelago, which reads, quote, Nantucket took hell. Being all one town, it was sprayed relentlessly. Tuckernuck and Muskeget, also part of the town, lie to the west. People reasoned that their marches would supply wind-blown mosquitoes to the rest of Nantucket. The planes were called in on them, too. The spraying has not stopped, end quote. The smoking gun in this case study, DDT, the genocide that would have inevitably ensued, so appropriately dubbed fogging. Only fitting for an island nicknamed the Grey Lady. Clint Andrews would remark later that he could display no knowledge of any fowler's toad anywhere on Nantucket after World War II, before which they were exceedingly abundant. Muskeget Island, which Dr. Lazzle describes as the strangest of our islands, may have even been home to a unique species of toad all its own, evidenced by 2 specimens preserved beautifully, both before the war happened, before the fog. So here we are now, left to interpret, analyze, come to realize what a proud island we have raped and pillaged through countless generations of systematic abuse and exploitation. We throw words at these massacres with an obtuse hindsight, using big words like immoral, ruthless, and ungodly. But in the truest extent of the phrase, the fog is only now just beginning to lift. I read a statistic the other day. The headline, New Study Finds US and Canada Have Lost More Than 1 in 4 birds in the Past 50 Years. I leaned my head back and thought about this for a second, and began to recall some of the things my older birder friends have recounted to me. Stories of how spring migration lasted several weeks, opposed to several days in just several pinpoint locations. Stories of how fall migration was guaranteed hundreds of migrants per day following the right winds, whereas now we stop at 70 species and call that a day. noisy blackbirds that would pass through in the dozens during March and April? What happened to the literal streams of long-tailed duck that would yodel their way over Smith's Point and into the safe haven of Nantucket Sound every evening? Well, I get to sit in the back of my dad's truck and eat takeout on Esser's Island while counting them go overhead by the hundreds. Well, I get to stand on Whale's Point in the dead of winter sustained solely on Sousa's bluefish pate, while an ocean conveyor belt keeps thousands of common eiders circulating past me at a dizzying rate. Will I be able to laugh with Ginger and Trish in the middle of a hurricane at Codfish Park while we scope shearwaters blown in from far-off shoals? Will I ever see a grasshopper sparrow on Nantucket again? These are the questions I ask myself as I sit in traffic on Sparks Ave, inhaling nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds, staring unamusedly at the bumper sticker of the commercial front truck in front of me reading, "There is no Planet B." I ask myself the same questions as I read pieces from Lazzle, or Folger, or Griscom, or Dunwoody, or Brace, or Veet, or Locks, or Blackshaw. While planes fly low over our house in Pulpus, which I know will descend lower still over Maurice Gibbs's house in a matter of minutes. The same questions I hope my generation will be the ones to answer. Truly, Nantucket today remains at the forefront of this global climate crisis. With islands like Tuckernuck losing over 15 feet from our coastlines each year, we risk having to say goodbye forever to the carefully groomed and naturally selected ecosystems we see still persisting despite our many sins as colonizers of a wild, unkempt, and unruly land. If we continue our collective lifestyle of excessivity and overzealousness, then certainly we will meet an end not unsimilar from the same natural processes that led great rivers to form shoals out of deltas, channels out of streams, and Nantucket born from the ocean itself during the receding worm glaciation. The waters will rise, and we will be left to decide why is it we settled here in the first place, if not to destroy what so many of us refer to as paradise. Nantucket, the garden of earthly delights, but not as God-given's right. I'm actually going to end this speech with a quote from the American rapper Chad Pimp C. Butler from his 2007 hit single International Players Anthem. No looking back, spaceships don't come equipped with rear view mirrors, the atmosphere is now ripped. Now hurry, hurry, hey, keep your heart. Play your part, play your part. Thank you.
So what do you got there, buddy? What do we got?
This is actually my mother's sign, and I'm actually on break right now. I'm a teacher's assistant at the Nantucket Intermediate School. And it's up to us. People are striking for climate across the country and across the globe right now, including on Nantucket, where when I was growing up, protests were kind of unheard of, and it's great to see so many people out today.
Well, I would expect to see more, to be honest with you. I'm a little shocked at how small this crowd is.
Yeah, I think it's a step, but it's something, and we need to start somewhere. So hopefully this is the first step, and we'll organize more.
So you're a teacher's assistant?
Yeah,
How old are you?
I should get back soon.
Yeah.
I'm 26 years old.
Okay.
I grew up on Nantucket and just moved back.
You did?
A couple of weeks ago.
So what do you think about what's going on with young people all coming out?
I think it's great. I think adults should stand with them. I think people, organizations, politicians, unions should all stand with students, and they're showing us the way, and we shouldn't be passive, that we should be actively participating with the students side by side, because not enough is being done about the climate crisis in our society.
And what do you think should be done? Give me just one solution that we should be doing right now.
I think the call for a Green New Deal is a great start, and I think building on the global climate strikes is a great idea, bringing more attention to the issue. And I think we need massive investment in green energy and green jobs and a just transition for the fossil fuel industry and the people who work in it to good, clean energy jobs that pay well and have benefits. And that'll stop the catastrophic things from happening in our society, especially to poor people across the world and people of color and people who have disproportionately not contributed to the climate crisis. And those are the people that are suffering the most from it right now and will continue to be.
If you do nothing, if you do not act, your children burn. And your children's children will burn. And your children's children will have no children, because they will all burn. And all that will be left is ash and dust. If you do nothing, your children will starve, and your children's children will starve, and the world will go to war for water, and all that will remain is ash and dust. This is not a political issue. This is not Democrats versus Republicans. This is not the left against the right, the liberals against the conservatives. This is an existential struggle. This is embers and seeds against ashes and dust. Survival against extinction. Action against inaction. Bravery against cowardice. Strength against weakness. This is danger on a scale previously consigned to fantasy novels. We act, or everyone dies. Everything becomes ashes and dust.
So you guys decided to skip school, or I mean, you could take a break. I know they don't count it as a day off today, so you could do this.
We can all come down here.
So that's cool that you made it down. So tell me, what do you think about this event, first of all?
Well, I think it's really cool that John Carl, the kid who's leading it, I think it's really cool that he went to our school principal and talked to him and was like, you know,
yeah, it's definitely
we're gonna make this a thing.
I mean, it's a good cause, so
yeah. It's like the first time Nantucket's ever done anything that's like high school focused too. Normally it's led by like older community members, and this is the first time like the high school has come out and done it. So it's kind of a cool thing that we did at that time.
So what are you hearing from high school kids? What do you hear from your other peers?
I mean, they're all supportive of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're in support because we're gonna have the world when we're older. So
yeah,
like we're gonna
kind of like we're passing the baton, this
exactly.
terrible baton on to you kids, and what are we going to do about it if you don't do something about it, right?
Yeah, then we'll have to deal with it way later in our lives when we don't want to.
So what would you think would be a good solution? I mean, there's so many we could do, but what would you like to see right away get done?
Carbon emissions cut down, definitely, because like that's
maybe more electric vehicles.
More electric.
Yeah, more solar power, like things that like reduce CO2 and they reduce like just like the needless waste that we have. Is like one thing.
What would be an example of something needless? I mean, cars, or
mostly just like the use of oil in everyday life is just like really abundant, where we just don't need it. Like we can really like lower that number by a ton. That'd help.
All right. What about agriculture? That's another big one, isn't it? Eating meat.
Eating meat is really bad for the environment. I mean, it's not bad for the environment, but like it produces a lot more fumes to make meat and to have it cut and to have it like.
I mean, yeah, like burgers, they're good, right? But
exactly.
Like, you know,
right. Cut it down. Right. Cut it way down. Right. Mm-hmm. We must do it. Go green or go home. I'm with her. Did you guys make those?
Yeah.
They are terrific.
Thanks.
So what'd you think of this event?
I liked it.
You did?
I'm glad that at least some people care.
What did you think of it?
How are you? It was good.
Are you gonna change anything about the way you're gonna do things from now on? What are you gonna do different?
I'm not really gonna use as much plastic bottles. I didn't even really use a lot of plastic bottles or plastic before, but I'm gonna stop totally.
Totally. How about you? Are you gonna use less plastic, huh? Okay. You want to say anything? Okay.
Well, he just worries about climate change. He's trying to understand it. He knows it's happening. And so we came to start taking action because if you're just feeling bad and anxious, if you can turn that into something positive, then we feel like that's the way to go forward.
And the kids, tell me what you think we should do right away. What do you want to see done? Nothing?
I don't know anything about this.
Okay, so you came
first time.
Okay. All right, how about you?
Okay.
Yeah, where do I start?
I think here on Nantucket, we could certainly start by putting solar panels in all of our municipal buildings. I think that would be a great start because with our multiple new schools that we've just put up, there's so much surface space on there that we could use for energy and it could be sustainable. It would be enough, I'm sure, to power the entire island if we just put it on all of our buildings.
I agree with Kat. I think that's a great idea. We need to start using our energy and water more wisely and starting to think
Okay. And nationally, what about nationally? What could we do nationally?
We need to vote for people who know how to make a change, because we might not know much more than something needs to happen and we need to stop climate change, but there are people who are much older than us who can get into government positions, and once we are old enough to vote, and the adults here can already vote, we need to vote for people who will make a change.
It seems to me that we're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. I mean, you know, today we can turn on the lights and there's power immediately. Hopefully that'll always be there, but suppose it were to change.
I mean, I don't think that that's really where the issue lies. I mean, it's good to do your part always, but we really need to start putting the pressure on larger corporations and government organizations, because there's only so much that the average consumer can do.
So corporations have to take more responsibility, you believe?
It's not just like one of those things is the generation being reliant on the government and large corporations for their support and us just sitting back and watching. We need them to make a difference, because we've already done our part. We've been for years working in small communities to try and fix things with renewable energy and recycling facilities and everything like that. But we can't do it all. Everybody else has to make a commitment to that too. Yeah.
I think change is good, but it's not always easy. So we're gonna have to step up.
And do you think the kids of your age group are really going to take this? Do you think that they're really serious about it?
For sure, yeah.
We're not giving up very fast.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Bill McKibben, this whole issue of Time Magazine is devoted to climate change. Bill McKibben, probably the leading writer on climate. He was on Nantucket about 30 years ago, talking about his first book, End of Nature, and his new book. But anyway, he's got the lead article in the Time Magazine, looking back at from 2050 as if we had done something. And everything is based on some massive political changes in the world. China, US, Russia, the major players, rethinking the issue because the people demand it of all their countries. And there will still be millions, hundreds of millions of people, climate refugees. There will still be intense heating of the planet. But he's looking back as if we had done something that some of civilization survived. The biggest standout is that everything he talks about, none of it will happen unless we get a change in U.S. politics, because U.S. politics affects the whole world in this next election. That's the first thing.
Change?
And what we changed is that we started to go all electric vehicles. We started to tax the carbon, as it should be.
Yes.
And the biggest one, actually, we're giving, I forget the number, $5.2 trillion amount that the International Monetary Fund, not a radical left group, International Monetary Fund, estimates fossil fuels received in subsidies worldwide. So when you say it's the cheapest alternative, because we're paying for it through taxpayer dollars. And if we gave that same amount of money to wind, solar, or even natural gas, even nuclear, those things would pick up the slack far faster. But we're paying for Exxon and the other companies to stay in business.
Doing
Good.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Who organized this? Who got
I was the primary organizer, but I couldn't have done it alone. I had a lot of help from Maisie Cocker, who was the first speaker, and Tori Dixon, who was the sign-up sheet that I have now. She was in the white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were pretty fired up.
Yeah, for sure.
Why do you think you need to get fired up over this? Or
we're out of time. I mean, so people talk about the IPCC special report on climate change, which said we have to limit the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and they say 2041. That's for a 50% chance of meeting that goal. If we want a 2 and 3 chance, we do it in 8.5 years. We're out of time. We have to say now, we're all going to die.
So what should we do first thing right now? What do we need to do first thing?
Right now, the most important thing, register to vote, because the most important thing you can do is vote. That's where your power is. That's how, as a citizen, you can affect this process to vote.
Got it.